Great. Well, welcome everyone. We have our, I think, ninth session this week with coping as a community with COVID-19. We have our Associate Vice Chancellor, Dr. Henry Tan, with us. He's back. He was able to join us for the first 3 sessions. And so welcome, Dr. Tan.
It's great to be here.
So glad to have you again. And so as you've been busy doing all the important work that you do as a physician for the health system, we've had a few sessions on a variety of coping skills, mechanisms, mindfulness and resilience building for our community members, and we've had quite a bit of success. And so today's session is all about family ties. And so Dr. Tan's going to talk to us a little bit about family ties and the dynamics around relationships in our families, especially during this pandemic season. So leaning in a little more, Dr. Tan, with the family dynamics, we're wanting to talk about intimate partner relationships. So as you've been doing so much work across our health system campus with our patients and our communities, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing couples facing during these times?
Yeah, so I think that this is a very important topic. Thank you for bringing that up. I thought that maybe before I answer that question, we can just do a brief grounding exercise, just because I think that as we talk about some of the challenges, it may bring up some tension for people, and I think that it could be helpful for us to sort of ground ourselves in a relaxation breathing exercise, and then move and speak about the question that you so aptly posed. Does that sound all right?
That's perfect, Dr. Tan. Yes, please do.
Great. So this is a grounding exercise, a breathing exercise that I use on a routine basis. And those of you who have joined me before on this webinar may be familiar with it. So what I'd like for you to do is to find a comfortable spot in your seat. And I'm just settling into my seat. I like to put my feet on the ground where I can really feel the texture of my shoes, or in this case, the ground and carpet itself. And, just hold your hands and your arm on your lap, on your thighs, and just let it sink and fall where it may. So this is a relaxed position. And as you do that, I want to start to help us to pay attention to our breathing. So breathing in and breathing out. And go ahead with your eyes. Just let your eyes fall where they may, preferably off the screen. You want to close your eyes, that's a good thing too. Or if you just want to focus it on something indistinct in front of you. And breathing in, breathing out. As you breathe in, notice the feeling as the air flows through your mouth, through your nose. Notice how the air touches your body, touches the back of your throat, touches your nostrils. And then breathing out, breathing in, air flowing through your nose, breathing out, air flowing out your mouth. Notice how it feels as your lungs accept the air, as it welcomes the air in a casual, relaxed, open way. Feel how your body responds, how that nourishing oxygen brings energy and relaxation to your body. Breathing in air into your nose, through your lungs, nourishment throughout your body. Breathing out, air flows through your mouth. Breathing in, taking in that vital energy, the nourishment, revitalization. And as you breathe out, notice the temperature of your breath. How your breath just carries the heat of your stress, of your tension out of your body. Feel that temperature. Feel it flow out as your body cools, relaxes. With every out breath, your body sinks deeper into your chair. Your feet plant deeper into the ground. Breathing in, nourishment. Breathing out, taking away the tension, sinking deeper into relaxation and groundedness. Breathing in, feel that life-giving connection. Breathing out, connect to the earth, connect to the ground. And notice that quiet in between your breaths, in between the in-breath and the exhalation. Feel that stillness. When the day is hectic, you can always find that stillness in between your breath. Breathing in, feeling vital. Breathing out, releasing the tension of the day. Let's go ahead and take a few more breaths and then refocus back. Okay. Thank you for going with me through that.
Thank you, Dr. Tan. It is so important that we are grounded and always taking that time to pause. It just gives us that sense of groundedness, so thank you. So welcome to everyone. We've had quite a few more members join us today. So Dr. Henry Tan, Associate Vice Chancellor for the Office of Health Equity, Diversity, Inclusion is our speaker today. And the focus is family ties. And so we're just going to talk and open up the conversation with Dr. Tan about intimate partner relationships. So Dr. Tan, I had posed the question about what are the challenges that couples are facing during these times that you've seen in your practice and in the community?
Well, I think one of the things that has been really culture changing in our communities here is the sheltering in place. And so that significant change, just like any kind of major change in life, that can cause stress in a marriage, in a partnership, even amongst roommates. You know, we find that when there are major life shifts, even positive ones, getting married, buying a house, you know, bringing in a new child into the to the family, those things, even if they are very happy, can cause added stress. And so what I first want to say is that it is normal. If you're feeling a certain degree of stress with your partner, that's normal. Okay, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your partners. There's probably nothing wrong with your relationship. It's part of the transition process. So that's the first thing that I want to just put out there, is that for the most part, for the majority of us, this is part of normal transition in partnerships. But there are some challenges that do come into play when we are sheltering at home. And one of the biggest things is that there's really no clear divide between home and work. And sometimes we need that. Oftentimes we need that in order to place boundaries that can help us to manage our life and to help us to not go into sort of overload, becoming overstimulated. But when you're sheltering in place, there's a greater chance that your partner or your kids will interrupt you for questions or conversations just because you're very accessible physically. And so that can add a level of stimulation. Time also gets blurred, and we may have challenges disengaging from work. You know, a lot of us who commute either by car, by bicycle, or by walking, we have that period in between home and traveling to work, and in between work and traveling to home, where we start to decompress. We start to think about, okay, well, I can set this aside. What do I need to do for, you know, if I'm going home, what do I need to do to get ready for home, plans for cooking, things like that. But when we're at home, oftentimes we don't have carved out time to think about that. Those transition times can be really important. And we sort of miss that when we're working at home. The other thing is that being at home, we're all probably very used to multitasking. And boundaries, physical boundaries, like the boundary between work and home, helps us to put boundaries and limits on our multitasking, because multitasking is good, but too much multitasking can add more stress to your life, and you start to have a greater cognitive and emotional load that you're carrying from 1 hour to the next. And so when we don't have those kinds of those boundaries, we may have expectations of ourselves or expectations of our partners to, you know, oh, clear the dishes, you know, cook for the kids, cook for me, do some house cleaning. You've got a few minutes in between meetings. Why didn't you do that? Or why shouldn't I do that? And so we might start to have expectations. Being around the home, you know, sometimes for partners who are more skilled and adept at doing things at home, you may find yourselves delegating and managing your partner who is mostly at work. And, you know, sometimes that's a good thing, but sometimes that can lead to micromanagement or the experience of micromanagement from the other partner who may be trying to contribute to home life, but doesn't really have the experience, or maybe they do it in their own way. And that may feel like a bit intrusive to the partner who has that expertise and has a way of doing things to manage the home. And so we may have expectations of each other that are challenged during this time of sheltering in place. We may also feel stuck at home and not really having an outlet for our stress. So one of the biggest ways that many people relieve stress is to sometimes disengage from the home life, right? Going out with friends or going out on a hike by yourself. The challenge of sheltering in place is that does mean that we have to be more creative to have those outlets. And if we don't have enough of those outlets, the stress can build up, the isolation can build up. You know, no matter how much you love being with your partner, there's only so much that human beings can take of one person, one another. And it is not an indication necessarily of the love that you feel for your partner, but it's an indication that we humans are actually social creatures, and we get our fulfillment oftentimes through a community, not just one person or one small group of people. And so that level of stress can add, and when we don't have the outlet, that can complicate things. Added stress, added tasks. You know, there are a lot of expectations with limitations on childcare, with limited school hours. You know, we may be left with planning 3 meals per day, 7 days a week without a break. That can be overwhelming, and that could put a strain on any relationship. Not to mention that if there are more people in the house, there's more to clean. And, you know, cleaning can raise all sorts of relationship tensions, like who's to blame for the mess? Who's going to clean up the mess? Are they doing it the right way? Are they cleaning well enough? Are they preventing the mess? So you can imagine the tension that can result in this, or maybe you're not needing to imagine, maybe it's happening. You know, these are things that I am certainly working through in my household as well. And then the final thing I'll mention that is an added level of stress is what people are calling the sweatpants effect. So just to be, you know, candid and transparent about this, probably a lot of us are not dressing fully, you know, to our full work attire, right? Right now, I have to admit to you, I'm not wearing shoes. I'm not wearing socks. I'm wearing, you know, I have my feet planted on the ground, feeling the texture of my carpet and floors. But it's things, so the sweatpants effect refers to, you know, when you're in an intimate relationship, sometimes coming home dressed in a power dress, power suit, a blazer, that can like look really attractive. Or, you know, you're combing your hair for work, you might not comb your hair, you might be in sweats, pants, and that adds a different level of appearance to your relationship. And so that may have an effect on the spark, if you will, of your relationship. But it not only has potentially this effect on one another, it may have an effect on you. Because sometimes when we get dressed up, it's not necessarily for our partners, it's for ourselves. It's to, you know, when I get dressed up, I feel good. When I comb my hair, I feel, you know, more attractive. And it's these things that can also impact our own self-esteem, how we relate to ourselves, and how we feel in our relationship with others. You know, sometimes, many times, when I'm not feeling attractive, I'm not connecting as well to my partner as when I am feeling, you know, more attractive. So that's a sweatpants effect. And so these kinds of things can add up and contribute to tensions in our relationships with our intimate partners, with our roommates, with our co-inhabitants.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Dr. Tan. Yes, I know quite a bit of all of that has been experienced or expressed with so many of my families and friends and coworkers. And so with all that you've outlined, what are some things that couples can do to take care of their relationship during this COVID pandemic?
Well, yeah, so these are really important and different times where all of us are more stressed. In fact, you know, close to 50% of Americans in a recent survey talk about being more stressed and having this impact their mental health in the United States. So these are unprecedented times. And so the first thing that I would suggest is cut yourself and cut your partner some slack, okay? These are times where we're all, where our reserve for doing the dishes, our reserve for patience, all of that, our reserve for getting our responsibilities done is going to be a bit less. And so cutting ourselves some slack, cutting our partner some slack is the first thing. Don't react to everything your partner does that annoys you. Take some deep breaths. Use the practice that we just did earlier this session to sort of calm yourself down. Not everything that annoys you need to approach with your partner. Give them some slack. Remember, if your partner's moody, it's probably not about you. There's a good chance that it's about the changes in work, the changes in socialization, the added stress of home life. But does it really have to do with you? Well, there's a greater likelihood these days that it has to do with other things. So, understanding that can help you to feel like you can give yourself some grace and peace around that. Now, there are, of course, things that may reach a level of concern where you do feel like you need to talk, where things do need to change. Some of the advice that I have on that is, number one, use I feel and I need statements. I feel that, when the dishes aren't clean, I feel really stressed. I feel unsettled. I feel anxious about that. Talk about need. I need help with this, rather than you did this or you should do this. Talk about need. Using I statements rather than you statements really helps your partner to be open to listening, which is the first part of having these kinds of conversations, is listening. Whereas when we use you statements, the partner feels like the focus is on them, and it's natural to become defensive. And when we're defensive, we're less open to listening. Put a time limit on discussing difficult issues, unless it really rises to a critical level. But for routine things, limit your time to maybe 20 or 30 minutes maximum. There's only so much that the human emotion and the human mind can take when it comes to high intensity emotions, especially if it relates to them or us. And so having that time limit allows for you and your partner to show the best, to bring the best of ourselves, to bring our most patient, our most open, listening, gentle selves. But it's hard to maintain that indefinitely. And so by having some time framed out, you respect that and you can bring your best forward. And then when it's over, put that aside. In fact, even find a way to reach out and appreciate what you and your partner have that is positive. You should also put in place a rule of thumb that if things get too heated, that you can have a timeout. This is really important, because when things get heated, we know this from both the diversity inclusion literature as well as the psychological literature, that when people reach a certain point where they feel that things are too emotionally intense, that's not a space where they can change. It's not a space where they can actually collaborate very well. So when we're in that space, we need to be able to call a timeout and need to be respectful of that. The timeout doesn't say, hey, I don't care what you're talking about. The timeout says, I really care about what you're talking about. I feel overwhelmed, and I don't think that I'm in my best person place to be able to give it the attention that I feel like it deserves. One thing that I would also encourage is carve out some alone time. The adage of absent makes the heart grow fonder, that's really true. These common sense wisdom, we're finding out from a science standpoint, yeah, they make a lot of sense. Sheltering in place where you're seeing each other every day, in sweatpants mode, that takes some of the spontaneity, vivaciousness out of the relationship. Spend some alone time. If you have the luxury of multiple rooms, create your own space. If you don't, even creating an artificial boundary, headphones can be a way that you can carve out some social space where you can be by yourself. Have some dedicated check-in time with your partner. This sort of gets back to what I said about talking about I statements and carving out space emotionally to have intense conversations. But even if you don't have a concern, I think that it can be very helpful to carve out space, even if it's only 20 minutes a day, where you can sit down with your partner and offer them an unconditional ear listening. So how it might work is, and before I go into that, the reason why this is so important is that we each deal with stress in our own way. And when we're both stressed together, it becomes very easy for me, for example, to assume that my partner is dealing with their stress in the same way that I'm dealing with it. And so then when they're showing stress in a way that I don't find to be very logical, I may make a quick judgment without really understanding how they're experiencing it. So I might say, hey, why are you slamming the door? You know, that's so unreasonable. That just is so childish. When in fact, if I had spent some time to really understand what their day has been like, I might say, oh, I understand why you're so frustrated. I understand why, you know, you're taking it out on the door because you don't want to take it out on your boss. I get that now, for example. So spend some time, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, carve out half of that time where you can say to your partner, I want you to take me through your day. And I'm here to listen. I want to understand what your day's been like, the good, the bad. I'm here for you. And then when it's your turn, your partner can make the same affirmation. This is your time. No one's going to question whether you should have done this or you should have done that. No one's going to question whether you know it's valid how you responded or not. So and then the thing that I would mention on that as well is if you'd like to develop skills around that, I want to point you to our community healing circles. So this is something that Mercedes is spearheading with our team. And in the community healing circles, we do just that. We practice the art of listening unconditionally. And we practice cultivating a context where each one of us has that space to share our mind, our hearts, our feelings, our context, without the feeling of being judged, with the understanding that there's a person or a group of people in front of us who are working to cultivate that acceptance of our experience. And through understanding our experience, we can grow closer together and we can learn to address critical issues together in a more effective way. Understanding, and this is something that we know from the clinical field, understanding is the first step to having the most effective impact, the most relevant impact on another person's life.
Thank you, Dr. Tan. Yes, and our virtual healing circle and community circle will happen this Monday, May 11th. And so we can send everybody on this call, on this virtual Zoom, that information. Dr. Tan, I love everything that you put forth. You know, the listening is so crucial to every relationship that we have, and listening with that open heart and mind, and not having the focus of fixing anything, which tends to be our workload is always problem solving and fixing, versus in our home life, that boundary that you just asked is to just settle in and just be that compassionate, open individual for the people that we live with and cohabitate with. So in this crisis, Dr. Tan, we've seen the best in communities, the best in people coming together and helping each other. But we know because of the stress and the strain that is impacting families and every individual on so many levels, that it can also bring out the worst in us in these challenging times. And we know that the data also shows that we've seen a rise in incidents of intimate partner violence as we shelter in place. Can you share your perspective on this and ways that we can support each other and families in our communities? And before we go into that, I wanted to open up the chat. So the team's going to open up the chat for our community that may be able to share resources with each other in this intimate space of this Zoom area. So, Dr. Tan.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up this really, I think, a really critical, important issue. Yes, I've seen that as well. That's the rates of intimate partner violence is increasing, not just in the United States, but around the world. And it has to do with sheltering in place. So one of the things, so I've worked with survivors of domestic violence, and one of the things, the classic patterns that perpetrators have is that they try to isolate the survivor. And with isolation, then they're able to exert more control, which contributes to both the emotional abuse as well as the physical abuse. And so there are definitely things in our shelter in place strategy that make people more vulnerable to experiencing domestic violence and intimate partner violence. When you are sheltering in place, it may be harder for you to be able to reach out to friends and family members, and that can play into the cycle of domestic violence as well. The added level of stress. So one of the things that we also know in the research is that when the perpetrator becomes more stressed or feels more threatened, that they will take that out on the survivor. And so with the added stress, financial stress, social stress, the uncertainty that we all are feeling, people who are prone to commit violence in the home will have more added impetus, if you will, more stress load that will cause them to take it out on their intimate partners. So there are things about the sheltering in place that do raise concerns for people who are in these distressed relationships. I think the important thing is that it's important to be able to reach out. This is really important because it really is the first and foremost thing that happens in a domestic violence situation, is that the survivor, that person becomes more and more isolated. So reaching out, staying connected. This can be challenging if you have the abuser in the next room or right next to you, as you may not be able to find the space. If the partner is at work, you may have some time during the day to connect with others. And so this presents a very significant challenge. I'll say that Weave is our local resource. It's a nonprofit organization that has done a lot of important and impactful work around domestic violence prevention and intervention. And they have expanded some resources for people who experience domestic violence. So they have a 24/7 support and information hotline. They also have an online chat. That's another means for support, especially if a person is home sheltering with their abuser. They may not be able to verbally pick up the phone and talk about things, but they may be able to engage in online chat. So this chat service is available from Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night. Now, one of the things that people are often worried about who are survivors, and many survivors share with me that challenge of leaving the home and not knowing where to go, not having the resources, being afraid of what the next step is. If I leave, I don't have anywhere to go. What will I do with my kids? What will I do with my income? There is Weave does offer emergency shelter. So I want those of you who are in this situation or who know people in this situation, please understand that there is emergency shelter at Weave. You can go on the chat service to get that information, and then you can speak with the experts and workers at Weave and other domestic violence prevention programs about transitional housing. so that after you start to take care of the immediate situation, you can start to think about transitions. For those of you who are not in this situation, I'm very thankful about that. Reach out to your friends. Reach out to those in those situations, but also in those who aren't, because that social network provides a preventative measure, provides a buffer against the worst of a domestic violence situation. So reaching out, keeping those networks robust, doing so online, doing so over the phone, keep those relationships alive and vital.
Thank you, Dr. Tan. And I was able to put the links for Weave and the resources that Dr. Tan has outlined, in addition to information on domestic shelters, into the chat box for resources for our attendees. So if there's any questions that folks want to put in the chat box, please go right ahead, and we'll be able to answer maybe one or two towards the end of our session today. So Dr. Tan, so we've been able to talk about our partners and our families, and so then we have a population of single parents. And so what advice can you give single parents during this time, and especially around children? Yes.
Yes. I think that these times are especially stressful for single parents. And you know, we have in our society, in our community, a lot of blending of families. You know, we have single parents, we have parents who co-parent at a distance. With the pandemic, we also have a new situation where some of the parents are first-line workers who may feel the need to shelter outside of the home to make sure that their family members don't get infected with COVID-19. So that's also a new situation that many of us have not experienced before. And I also want to acknowledge people in that situation as well. I think the first thing that I would encourage you to do is to start with self-acceptance and acceptance in general. This applies for all of us, but I think it particularly can have meaning for those of us who are single parents raising kids by ourselves, because it's challenging. And if you can acknowledge that, you know, right now we're in survival mode. Our society is in survival mode. We're not going to be able to give the best of what we have. And just understanding that and accepting that of ourselves, I think, is the first step. Don't be hard on yourself. If you feel like you can't cook 3 days, you know, 3 meals, 7 days a week, and you're ordering frozen food or you're ordering from a restaurant, that's okay. You know, in these months, it's not going to have that significant of an impact on our health that we're ordering out or we're eating frozen food. We're in survival mode right now. If you can't find, you know, a 9 to 3 curriculum for your kids for school, that's okay. Our schools in general are struggling with finding meaningful education. And so have that self-acceptance, that acceptance of others. The thing about acceptance is that when you accept the things that you can't change, when I am able to do that, then it brings a level of comfort for myself, and it helps me to refocus on things that I can change. Okay, so that's the first step in managing anxiety, is actually acceptance. Go back to the basics. Think about the basics. Again, this is survival mode. The basics are, you know, what are you doing to get sleep? What are you doing to make sure that you're eating and getting some exercise during the day? These are the basic things. But if you can do that, If you can put that frozen pizza in the oven, be proud of that, because you're nourishing yourself and you're nourishing your family. Take a few minutes in a day for yourself. That's really important. You know, I think that especially for single parents, you may feel really overwhelmed, and it may take active scheduling of time for yourself. And by and large, most kids, when they have those boundaries, by and large, they're able to accept some form of those boundaries, and it's healthy for them as well to be able to do that. And then, I used to be a real stickler when it comes to screen time for the kids, and we had this whole schedule out, and I had, I was really firm with that. This is a good time to relax screen time limits, because this is a lifeline for a lot of our kids to connect with their friends. This is also a way in which our kids can do some online learning, online engagement, while we are doing the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves, and to take care, if we're working, take care of our work as well. If we take care of ourselves, we're going to be in the best position to take care of our family. The other thing is, find your village. Find your village. It takes a village. And so what that means is, look for those online play dates with your friends. And hey, when you're having those online play dates, have a date with your friend as well. So when the kids are, playing an online game with each other, have a glass of wine, have a meal together, do something together so that you are replenishing. If you can synergize that, that's really wonderful, because then your kids also see that their parent is interacting and socializing as well. And so that models great coping behavior as well during this extraordinary time. So those things are like super relevant and super efficient, where you're doing both. You're being a good parent and you're taking care of yourself at the same time. So if you can find more of those situations, go for it. Encourage elder kids to take care of younger kids. This is something that was done in my family growing up. This is done in a lot of families, particularly families from diverse background, where extended families are, really a vital part of everyday life. This is where we can learn from other cultures, from cultures who have these kinds of setups with their families. So, encourage your elder kids to take care of the younger ones. Start out with playing. Start out by encouraging the kids to prepare some of the meals. My daughter and son do cookies for us. So they bake chocolate chip cookies for us. It's something that they're proud of. It's something they do together so that they're bonding. And 9 times out of 10, those cookies are really good. And so there's a sense of contributing to the family. Elder kids and younger kids, when they feel that sense of being able to contribute, that helps the family's overall mental health. And especially if you're a single parent, that can be impactful in so many important ways. Speak with your boss, speak with your employer about your work situation. It's really important to be able to communicate these situations to your boss, so that they understand the context, so that they can keep that in mind. And there may be some things that they can do about it. Hopefully there are things that they can do about it. We're all learning, particularly at our health system, the things that we as a system need to do to help people to be able to successfully work from home and to balance the work life. So we're learning from that, but we can't really learn unless we understand. And so what you can do is to communicate with your boss about the situation. And you might say, I want you to know that I've got a child at home. While we're setting up boundaries, they may come in, I may need to mute, I may need to step out real quick. Is there a way that I can let you know, so that I can take care of my child and some urgent issues? I may need a more flexible work schedule. I want you to know that there may be times during the day where I can't deliver because those are nap times, or those are specific times that I need to dedicate to my child, but I'm also working flexible hours. And so, please understand that as well. One of the things that I've started to do is try to carve out the noon time to check in with my kids. How are you doing during the day? How am I doing during the day? And we're doing that over a meal. So this is really important to keep or develop rituals that have to do with eating together or playing together. There's a biological impact to this as well, because when you're eating, the part of your brain that is activated and that is anxious and that is sort of looking out for the worst, that starts to calm down as your nourishing brain, your relaxing brain, your social connection brain starts to awaken with food. And that's a really great time to be with your kids, when their brain is also doing that as well. So basically what we're doing when we're eating, when we're carving out time together to eat every single day, is that my kids are planning that out. Sometimes I can't do it and I'll let them know, but most times we're planning that out so that they know that in the noon hour, it's their time, unless, we're doing something extraordinary. It stacks the deck because we're all now in a space where we can calm down, where we can listen to each other. And so that half hour to an hour of time during the noon, it's a time where it's pleasant. It's a time where we can take back in our memory, as I close out my day at night, and I can say, I had a nice time with the kids. And it was biologically stacked that way. I'm using science to help. So carve out the time, speak with your boss, let them know, and then finally, go easy on yourself. Go easy on yourself. This is a time where, if there was latitude that we can give each other, give ourselves, this is the time.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, Dr. Tan. The intentionality of everything that you've put forth is so important. And I was just going to do a screen share really quick with everyone to remind everyone that on our Office for Health Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, we have all of the sessions on our website that you can tap into for all of the other resources that we've helped to develop to build our coping strategies, our mindfulness practices, and all that we want to do to be as healthy as possible. As Dr. Tan, you were outlining the fact that, all the research that is shown in relationship building, in our self-care, in all that we do is so, so crucial to the work that helps us to take care of ourselves, that self-care that we all need so that we have the better relationships moving forward. And so, Dr. Tan, at this time, we are wanting to just have any last statements of encouragement and upliftment for our attendees.
Well, what I'd like to say is that we are resilient people. The pandemic is an unprecedented one, but if you look out there every day, we're seeing resilience. If you're looking at your family members, look for that resilience. It's there. In uncertain times, we tend to overestimate the bad and underappreciate the good. And so it does take, as Mercedes mentioned, some intentionality. But I want you to know that intentionality will pay out dividends for your mental health and your social health and that of your family members. I hope that what we've shared today you can use, because this is really meant to provide you with some very practical solutions that you can implement in the here and now, both in terms of the strategies that I've shared, that I've used personally, as well as in my clinical work, and then also the relaxation and meditation exercise. I want to encourage you to really do that. Build it in every day. Find a time to do that, because even that little bit of relaxation and grounding work can reset you from a biological standpoint. And as much as I want to say that I am a purely thinking, thoughtful person, the reality is that a lot of times we all act on in the context of our biology. And so by nourishing ourselves, getting the exercise, sleep, and by grounding ourselves, we are stacking the deck in favor of our social wellness, our physical wellness, and our emotional mental wellness.
Great, Dr. Tan. So would you like to take us through a relaxation process to end our session today?
Absolutely. So thank you everybody for participating in this. If you can, again, find a comfortable place in your seat and just allow your body to sink into your chair. Feel that sinking in. And allow your feet to be flat on the floor, sinking into the ground. And letting your hands and arms just fall onto your lap. Just letting things fall. And paying attention to your breath. Breathing in, noticing the cool air coming in through your nose into your lungs. Feel that vital energy as it courses from your lungs through your blood to your body, to your soul. And then breathing out, letting go of that tension. The heat that carries away from your body carries the tension away. Feel that heat as it exits your mouth. Feel your body sink deeper into relaxation with every breath. Breathing in, vital. Breathing out, sinking deeper into relaxation, grounding yourself into your chair, into the ground. Notice that peace in between your breath. The silence, the stillness before you breathe out. Notice how naturally that silence arises in between feeling vital and feeling grounded. These are the things that you have that can help you to stay well. These are the things that you can draw upon if you need it. Draw on your behalf, on your family's behalf, on your friends' behalf, on the community's behalf. The energy of the air, the stillness between breaths, and the grounding of your out-breath. Let's take a few more breaths, and then let's refocus.
That was lovely, Dr. Tan. Thank you so much for your time and your energy and your support for our sessions through the pandemic. We'll continue these sessions. on May 25th, and we'll be moving forward with having monthly sessions online through these wellness webinars with diversity, equity, and inclusion here at UC Davis Health. Thank you everyone's participation, and have a wonderful day and be well.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mercedes and the team for providing such a wonderful space for us to have this dialogue.
Thank you, Dr. Tan. Bye-bye.